Your Psychic Powers and How to Develop Them by Hereward Carrington. Chapter 4. The Subconscious. In this chapter, I shall take up and try to make plain to the student the nature and functions of the subconscious mind. This is the greatest of all stumbling blocks to many spiritualists. Its possibilities, and at the same time its limitations, should be made clear to the student at the beginning of his studies. Otherwise, he is sure to get in trouble later on, not only with himself and with the phenomena he is studying, but with all persons who discuss these subjects with him and try to persuade him that the whole of spiritualism may be accounted for by the powers of the subconscious. What is the subconscious mind? First of all, what is the subconscious mind? We do not know exactly, but a great deal has been found out concerning it within the past quarter of a century. 20 years ago, when Thomson J. Hudson wrote his famous work, The Law of Psychic Phenomena, very little was known of the subconscious. Nearly everything which has been discovered about it has been learned since he wrote. His attitude is doubtless well known to the majority of my readers. It is that man has two minds, the conscious and the subconscious, or, as he preferred to express it, the objective and the subjective minds. The first of these is the conscious mind, the everyday reasoning mind. The second is that vast realm in which occur the phenomena of dreams, hypnotism, insanity, hysteria, clairvoyance, telepathy, and all kindred psychic phenomena. He placed the objective mind in the cerebrum or fore part of the brain, and the subjective mind in the cerebellum or hinder part of the brain. Two minds or one. But this dual conception of the mind is today given up by practically all psychologists. They admit that the mind is, in a certain sense, dual, but it is believed that both minds are in reality one, a part of which is conscious, and of the greater part, of which we know nothing. The analogy of the iceberg has often been used. A small percentage of this emerges above the water, and this we see and know, but the greater part of the mountain of ice is below the surface, and this we do not know through our senses, yet it is all one iceberg. In the same way, there is only one mind, but when the searchlight of consciousness is turned upon certain areas, those areas become illuminated, and we know, or are conscious of, those parts. All else remains in the dim obscurity beyond, in the great storehouse of the subconscious mind. The powers of the subconscious. It may easily be proved that the subconscious mind acquires far more information, even through the senses, than does the conscious mind. The following simple experiment will prove this. Lead a person into a strange room, and ask him to observe as many things in it as he possibly can. Suppose he remains 5 seconds in that room. He is then quickly removed, and the door shut. If now he is asked to tell you all the things that he remembers having seen, he will probably be unable to remember 10 or 15 of them. But if you were to hypnotize that person, he would then describe to you, under hypnotic influence, 40 or 50 things which were in the room. This shows us that the subconscious mind, which we reached through hypnotism, has been able to perceive or take in many more things than the conscious mind. This happens to us every day. Dreams. It is the same with dreams. If, when out walking, we should happen to drop a brooch pin or a piece of money, we might be totally unconscious of the fact, but the subconscious mind would perceive and record it. That night, in sleep, we might have a dream in which a figure appeared to us and told us that the article had been lost, and that it would be found in such and such a place. On looking the next morning, sure enough, there it was. Here we see that the subconscious has perceived a certain fact which the conscious mind did not notice. For long it was thought that this power signified some supernormal faculty of the subconscious mind, but in most cases it is not necessary to suppose this, for, as the last experiment showed us, the subconscious mind takes in many things which the conscious mind does not, and only the most striking and interesting facts rise into consciousness. Of the thousands of events going on all around us every day, we perceive but a few. All the rest are ignored, though they are lodged within the great mental storehouse within us. The memory of the subconscious. The powers of the subconscious mind are indeed great. It forgets nothing, and facts which have entirely slipped from the conscious mind are retained within it, and may be recalled years later, or may suddenly flash into the memory of their own accord. They may come into the mind in the form of some simple thought or memory, just as any other thought or memory would, or they may come to us in more startling form. They may be, as we say, externalized, that is, projected upward from the subconscious into the conscious mind, forcibly and dramatically, as a bombshell might be exploded within it. In these cases, the thought may strike us as coming wholly from without, and not from within ourselves at all. One or two examples will make this clear. You have mislaid a book. You cannot remember where it is. The natural process would be to recollect. In the case of an individual who is psychic or mediumistic, the externalization may take more startling form. He may hear a voice telling him to look under certain papers upon the library table, and sure enough, upon looking there, the book is found. Or he may have a mental picture of himself leaving the book in that place. Or he may feel a hand gently pushing him in the direction of the table. Or he may see a figure standing before him and pointing to the hidden book. In all these cases, it is improbable that the voice, the touch, and the figure were real. That is, that they came from some spirit friend. They may have done so, but it is true that, in many cases at least, they are methods by which the subconscious mind externalizes or reproduces its hidden memories in dramatic form, just as they are reproduced in dreams or in visions of the crystal ball. The psychic diaphragm. The subconscious mind, therefore, may be looked upon as composed of a number of strata, like a layer cake, which are normally more or less separated from one another by a sort of psychic membrane or diaphragm which is impervious. At times, this psychic diaphragm becomes thinned. In that case, we remember our dreams of the previous night, or we have wonderful constructions of genius, the productions of musical prodigies, etc. The subconscious mind works out the problems, and the finished product is projected into the conscious mind in its completed form. That is why it appears to us so marvelous. On the other hand, if a part of the subconscious mind is diseased, as may sometimes happen, then we have hysteria, obsession, and insanity. It will be seen, therefore, that both good and evil may result from this thinning or puncturing of the psychic diaphragm, separating the conscious from the subconscious mind. If the mind be healthy and is kept so, only good will result. Psychic powers will be cultivated, and helpful advice will be given to the subject thenceforward. If, on the other hand, the mind becomes in any way deranged or diseased, then harm may result, and the individual may be sorry that he has ruptured this dividing diaphragm instead of preserving it intact. It is all a question of care, good health, good judgment, and a healthy psychic, mental, and physical life. Once this psychic membrane has been, so to say, punctured, it is very difficult to heal it up again, and great care must be exercised in developing these subconscious phenomena. We shall discuss this more fully, however, in the chapter devoted to obsession. The subconscious mind should be made our friend and not our enemy. We should train it carefully, for though it is a good servant, it is a bad master. It should always be kept in check and dominated and controlled by the conscious mind. When this is the case, all goes well. How the subconscious reckons time. The subconscious has, among other faculties, the power of reckoning time in a most remarkable manner. Many of my readers have doubtless conducted the following experiment for themselves. On going to bed, you have said to yourself, "Now I wish to wake tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock promptly because I have such and such a train to catch." There is no alarm clock in the house, but promptly at 7, you awake. That this is no mere chance coincidence has been proven by a number of cases which have been collected, and the fact has also been proven experimentally on hypnotic subjects. Thus, they have been told that in, say, 9,750 seconds, they would perform a certain action. Then they were immediately awakened. As soon as awake, they knew nothing of the suggestion which had been given to them, and nothing of the action they were to perform, and yet precisely in 9,750 seconds they performed the action in question. We see, therefore, that the subconscious mind has the faculty of reckoning time in a very remarkable manner, and this is but one of its mysterious powers. The subconscious rules the body. Another of its remarkable manifestations is the power which it possesses over the bodily organization. By means of suggestion, the pulse has been raised or slowed, the temperature has been elevated or lowered, the various secretions of the body have been altered, and many similar phenomena which are well known to anyone who has read upon this subject. One of the most striking cases, doubtless, is that of Mademoiselle Ilma X. A pair of cold scissors was applied to her chest, and it was suggested that these were red hot and that they were burning the flesh. In a few moments an angry red mark appeared, corresponding to the shape of the scissors, and the next day a genuine blister had been created which took several days to heal. Here we see the power of the subconscious mind in affecting the body, and even the local tissues, to a remarkable extent. If this is true, and the body can be harmed in this way, it can doubtless also be cured. We here enter the field of suggestion and psychotherapy, which will be treated more fully in Chapter 30. How to give your own subconscious mind suggestions. One of the best methods of treating yourself is by suggesting certain desirable things just as you are falling off to sleep. Thus, if anything is wrong with you physically, mentally, or spiritually, suggest to yourself, the last thing at night as you are falling to sleep, that all will be well, that the trouble will be removed during the night, that you will wake up refreshed and invigorated, that there be no pain, no unpleasant feelings or emotions in the morning, etc. Suggest, in fact, whatever you desire to have accomplished, and you will find that, during the night, this will have been effected, and that your bodily or mental ills will have disappeared as the result of your autosuggestion during the hours of sleep. Here again, we shall be enabled to see the remarkable powers of the subconscious mind brought into play and clearly demonstrated. Spirit messages and the subconscious. Now, these faculties of the subconscious mind explain a certain number of spirit messages which are received at seances. Let me illustrate this in the following manner. Just before leaving your home to join a circle, you glance at the evening paper. Your attention has been attracted to the leading articles. Apparently, you have seen nothing else. At the seance that evening, the name of a friend of yours is spelled out, and the announcement that this friend has been killed that day by falling from the 4th story of his residence. At first sight, this seems a very good test message, but on going home and again looking at your evening paper, you find a small article tucked away in the corner of the paper stating these facts. Therefore, probably what happened was this. Your subconscious mind perceived and took in these facts without their even rising to consciousness, and at the seance, they were given out either by yourself or by the medium who obtained them from your mind by telepathy. In this way, many messages have been explained and shown to be due to the workings of the subconscious mind, and not to spirits at all. We must, therefore, always be on our guard against these possibilities. The structure of the mind. The older conception of the human mind was that it was a single entity, an individual thing, a sort of sphere incapable of division. This was, in fact, one of Plato's main arguments for the immortality of the soul. Unfortunately, modern science has destroyed this illusion. We now know that the human mind is a composite and not a simple thing. To use a rough analogy, it has been proved that the mind is somewhat like a rope, composed of a number of strands twisted together. Under normal, healthy conditions, this rope remains one, the strands are united. But under certain abnormal states or conditions, these strands may be divided up into several groups, and they would all pull in different directions. What holds these strands together normally? First, good health. Then cheerfulness, attention, concentration, will, and an interest in objective things. What favors this disintegration process, this dissociation of the mind, as it is called? The exact opposite of all this, a rundown or fatigued condition, introspection, and particularly all continued subjective practices and the too passive attitude of the mind. If we lose contact with and interest in the objective world, if we go inside our heads and spin romances and dream daydreams to too great an extent, if we gaze blankly into space, thinking of nothing in particular, if we allow the mind to become too passive and do not exercise our intellect in a normal, healthy manner, this disintegration is likely to take place. The strands of the rope become separated, and then the mind may go to pieces, and spirit obsession and even insanity may result. How to heal a sick mind. Of course, this is only a crude analogy. The mind is not like a rope, and cannot be divided into strands in the same way, but it is an analogy which will help us. The only way to heal and restore a mind in this condition is to weave or weld together these separate strands and bind them up again into one solid, single rope, as it were. This may often be done by hypnotism, but great care must be exercised in doing this, for if it is not rightly applied by an expert operator, the mind may become still more disintegrated, and the last state of that man shall be worse than the first. Now, these separate strands of the mind, to return to our analogy of the rope, may form different selves. Each self may possess a certain identity and individuality of its own, and they may all pull in different directions. That is, they may all exercise their own functions and powers, and think their own thoughts. There is no one self anymore. It has gone to pieces. These various selves may alternate one with another in the same individual, and then we have those interesting cases known to us as alternating personality. If there are two of these, we have double personality. If there are three or more of these personalities, we have a case of multiple personality. There are sometimes 6 or 7 of these, and in one case, it was reported that there were 10, all in the same individual, all alternating with one another, all having their own prejudices, likes, dislikes, interests, points of view, and knowledge of persons and things. Many such cases have been cured by welding together several of these selves by hypnotic suggestion, when the original man was restored. The differences between spirits and subconscious selves. Now, if this be true, and it has been proved to be true by many well-authenticated cases, how distinguish these selves from true spirits? This is a very complex question which cannot be fully answered in this place, because we must understand, first of all, more of the nature of the subconscious mind and its powers. But one simple test can be applied, which is this. All these personalities, or parts of selves, derive their knowledge of men and things through the same source, namely the 5 senses. None of them can possibly know any fact which was not supplied to them through sight, hearing, touch, etc., so that if any of them manifest supernormal knowledge, this proves to us at once either that some external intelligence is present, or that this personality, whatever it may be, has acquired this knowledge in some occult manner, by telepathy, clairvoyance, etc. Which of these two interpretations is the correct one, I shall endeavor to answer in another place. Personalities created by hypnotism. It may seem incomprehensible to many how the human mind can become split up or dissociated in this manner. They think that this is rather a far-fetched theory, and prefer to believe the simple theory of spiritism as applied even to the most simple facts. This might be admissible, but for the following consideration. We can trace a gradual series of intermediate steps all the way from normal states of mind to these dissociations. In daydreaming and absent-mindedness, we see the first of these steps. When we hypnotize a subject and suggest to him that he is Napoleon Bonaparte or Julius Caesar, and he enacts the part with due gravity, we can hardly suppose that Napoleon Bonaparte or Julius Caesar really returned to manifest through him. And should any be inclined to accept this view, it may be said that the hypnotic subject will just as easily carry out the suggestion that he is a lion or a bear or a bird flying in the air, and no one, we imagine, would contend that a lion or a bear or a bird really manifested at such times. So, therefore, we see that one part of the mind may enact a little comedy by itself, without the knowledge of another part, and from this simple fact to the most striking phenomena of the subconscious, we can trace a definite chain of connection. The picture-forming faculty of the mind. One of the most striking powers which the subconscious mind possesses is its ability to reconstruct mental pictures or photographs of distant or imaginary persons. Your mind contains a whole picture gallery of all your friends, which you see, as it were, in your mind's eye. This is limited not only to your friends and relatives, but to heroes of books you have read, and even to imaginary personages. These pictures are not set and inert, but live and move, and we place the characters in various situations and cause them to move, act, and talk as human beings would do. Thus, suppose your friend A, or David Harum, or some imaginary personage, were thought by you to be on a journey. You would imagine them to be in various situations, and would picture to yourself precisely how they would act in each situation, and would put into their mouths arguments and conversations which they would carry on with those about them. This faculty which the mind possesses is a very peculiar one, and its functions are technically known as spiritoid functions. They have a great bearing upon spiritism. How dream personalities talk. These phenomena show us how easy it is for the subconscious to imagine that various personages are present, carrying on a conversation with us, etc., whereas, as a matter of fact, they are not present at all, but were invented by us. If, therefore, at a séance, some exalted personage appears and claims to communicate, we must always assure ourselves, first of all, that this personage is not one of these semi-conscious or subconscious creations, and must make him give proof of his own identity. This faculty of the mind is again seen in dreams. In dreams, we create situations in a similar manner, and imagine that other personages are present talking to us. We have long debates and arguments with such personages, and sometimes they beat us out. So you see how important it is to be sure that the intelligences which communicate at seances are not creations, but are really individualities, as they claim to be. How to distinguish true from false. How are we to prove this and make this distinction, you may say? The following is the first method. All our knowledge, whether it is conscious or subconscious, is supposed to be obtained through the five senses. The subconscious is built upon the facts obtained by means of hearing, sight, touch, etc. Now, if the communicating intelligence tells us many facts as proof of its identity, which the mind of the medium never knew, we have fairly good proof of identity, or at least that the knowledge given was obtained by some supernormal means. But decisive proof is not yet obtained. We know that there are other methods of obtaining supernormal information, for instance, telepathy, clairvoyance, etc. Adding these powers to the subconscious faculties of the medium, we have often a difficult task to prove that the intelligence which communicates with us is really the personage it claims to be. Repeated questions must be asked, absolute proof of identity must be insisted upon, and in this way only can we be sure that we have passed beyond the limitations of the subconscious mind of the medium, and that we are really obtaining messages direct from the spirit world. Why and how spirits prove their identity. This proof of identity is really the great problem and the first point to solve. Let me make this plain. Suppose that a cousin of yours had disappeared 12 years ago. One day you receive a call over the telephone and a voice says to you, "I am your cousin, so-and-so. I demand my share of your uncle's will." Naturally, you would reply, "How do I know that you are so-and-so?" In daily life, it would be an easy matter to prove this. He could appear before you in his physical body and you could identify him, more or less easily in most cases. But suppose he were so placed that he could never see you personally. In such a case, how could he prove to you that he really was the person in question? He would have to relate to you a number of personal and detailed incidents in his past life, which he would be the only likely person to know, or relate facts which only he and you knew, or tell you things which you did not know, but which you afterwards found out to be correct. If you received a number of these replies, you would be right in concluding that he really was the person at the other end of the line, and this is the way in which spirits prove to us their identity. Until they do so, we can never be sure that the teachings they give are correct. If they succeed in proving their identity, we may then accept their word as to the conditions of the next life and other matters, since they were always truthful people in this life, and we have no reason to suppose that they are other than truthful now. How we obtain spirit messages through the subconscious. The subconscious is the channel through which we obtain spirit messages in nearly all cases. That is, they come through or by means of the subconscious mind, and it therefore assists the spirits to communicate. The spirit can manipulate or act upon the subconscious, while it cannot readily affect the conscious mind. This we can see ourselves in the following way. Many of us have noticed that just as we are dropping off to sleep, a forgotten memory has flashed into our mind. It could not find its way to our conscious attention while the latter was busy with the day's activities. But as soon as the conscious mind became passive, then the subconscious had the power to send up this memory or message of warning. It is the same in the case of spirits who communicate. They are only enabled to do so when the conscious mind is in abeyance, quieted, or abstracted, more or less completely, as in a trance. Then the spirit is enabled to act upon the subconscious mind of the medium, and, through it, to reach us still in the body. The subconscious is, therefore, the true medium or vehicle for the manifestation of discarnate spirits, and this will become more apparent when we come to consider the phenomena of trance, which will be dealt with more fully in a later chapter. End of chapter 4.